Hello folks, I'm here today in what might be the most talked about EV not to be adorned with a Tesla badge. It's the MG4. So the SE version of the MG4 costs about £27,000, gives you 0-60 time of 7.5 seconds and 218 miles of range is claimed. The SE long range that we're in today gets 281 miles of range and the 0-60 time goes back to 7.7 seconds. And then that's 29,500 by the way. And then top of the shop is the trophy spec. That's all singing, all dancing. You've got the same range, same 0-60 time, but just more spec. That's 32.5 grand. And a big part of the reason that the car's caused so much of a stir is because of that pricing. It's so much cheaper than something like the VW ID.3, which this car appears to be a very direct rival to. Now, car design's a very subjective thing, but for me, this is a very interesting looking car, especially for a brand like MG, who are obviously making things to quite a price. And it would be easy for them to put out something that's a bit cookie cutter, that's maybe a little bit of a borrowed design from someone else. And they certainly haven't done that here. I think it's a great looking car. You let me know your thoughts in the comments. You'll see the MG4's got these very cool rear lights. On the trophy spec model, you actually get a light bar that goes all the way across the back, which is very cool indeed. You also, on the trophy, get some little kind of rear diffuser spoilers up here. Much like in a Tesla, the wheels have these plastic covers on to give you a bit more aerodynamism. You can take those off though and reveal a fairly average looking alloy wheel underneath. I'm not going to do that now because it's filthy. Right folks, so in the front cabin here, the first thing that strikes you is how well built everything appears to be, and really well laid out in fairness. The material quality is not amazing. It is all quite hard plastic. There's some softer stuff on the door and on top of the armrest here, but it feels like very good quality, apart from some cheaper stuff just down here where you're never going to come into contact with it. There are no squeaks or rattles or anything. It all feels really well screwed together. The driver information display is nice and clear. It's crisp, it's vivid. It's also got a Tesla-esque little graphic showing you other cars being detected by the car's cruise control system. No issues with that. The infotainment system is brilliant. It's really quite simple. There aren't too many functions. In fact, in this SE model, SE long range actually, it doesn't even come with sat-nav as standard. It's got wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is what 99% of people are going to do anyway. Just get into the car, plug in their phone, and that's your sat-nav if you need it. Most of the functions are really easy to operate via the touchscreen. You've also got physical buttons for turning the aircon on and off, the rear and front demisters for the screens, hazard warning lights, your home button to take you back to this main page on the infotainment system, and volume up and down. Unfortunately, no manual aircon controls, but they are on the home page of this touchscreen. Just give us a wheel, people. It's so much easier. I just don't know why car companies are not doing it. So the center console here, instead of the usual sort of high center console, it's quite low. You've got a couple of cup holders down here, perhaps not massively conveniently positioned because of this little sort of plinth here. This is great though. You've got easy access to your gear selector and also a little shelf for your mobile phone, which is well thought out. There's a USB socket down there, a USB-A, sorry, and a USB-C. In terms of storage, the glove box is a good size, really useful little cubby here, and another one here, as well as a little load net just here. The steering wheel's a lovely thing. It's slightly squared off, as we're sort of fairly used to seeing now in things like Peugeot Citroën cars and things like the BMW iX. It's clad in quite a nice quality leather or leather effect material, and it's got just the right number of thumb controls. It's really comfortable under the hand. It's a nice thing. The thing that's really sadly lacking from this car is a physical button for drive mode select. Either give us one there or give us one on the steering wheel, but this desperately needs a drive mode select. The other night, driving back from Southampton, the weather changed from okay to fairly icy fairly quickly, and I'm driving along national speed limit roads, fiddling about with the screen, trying to find a drive mode for icy conditions in a rear-wheel drive car. That's not that safe. Just give us a button, folks. It's that simple. Now, it's only the trophy models that get electronically adjustable seats, but it means they can't do this. Bags of fun. Now, moving into the back, there's space for 3 adults in here, perhaps not for a long journey because it's not a wide car, so there's not going to be tons of shoulder room. There's an almost flat floor, so there's plenty of foot room for the person sitting in the middle. We've got a USB-A down here, no rear seat pockets on this one. You do get them on the Trophy, and not too much else to speak of really. No lights in the back here, which is a bit odd, and also no grab handles. Seems weird. There is a little hook there to stick a jacket or coat onto though. Nice and comfortable, nothing really to complain about. It's just no grab handles, no rear light. Oh, and no centre armrest either. Now the boot's a very good size and shape. 366 litres is competitive with most of its rivals. Unfortunately, there's no frunk, so it means you have to keep your cables in here. Why they don't use the front space in these EVs from time to time baffles me a bit, and it's the ideal space to keep your cables. Never mind, it's not a perfect world. So the driving experience, it has to be said, is a brilliant one. It doesn't have that sort of kick in the back, lightning fast acceleration that you get with a lot of EVs, but what it does have is something that many of them don't, and that's that it's actually fun through the twisty back roads. It's rear wheel drive, it's really nicely weighted, the steering feels good, the suspension's perfect, it's not too firm, not too soft, and it's just a great thing to drive. It's the first EV, in my opinion, that you could really truly call a driver's car. And when I say a driver's car, I mean an enthusiastic driver's car. There aren't more comfortable cars, there are more refined cars. There aren't many that are as much fun on twisty back roads that are battery powered. One slight annoyance is that you get a bit more noise in the cabin than you would expect from an EV when you're at motorway speed. Around the town it's nice and quiet, but when you get up to 60-70 miles an hour, there is a bit of wind noise that comes into the cabin, and if you're in, foul weather as well, it is a bit noisy in here. Otherwise, the driving manners are absolutely fine on the motorway. It cruises along at 70 all day long, very nice and comfortable, no issues whatsoever, and in fact the car is just as happy on the motorway as it is street fighting around town or taking the twisty back roads. It's a lovely thing, and it's incredibly well engineered and well put together. And one thing the car does lack is one pedal driving. That's not really possible in this car. The regenerative braking is there, but it's not very sort of severe. Probably makes it an easy car for someone to get into that's new to EVs and is not used to that sort of one pedal driving thing. But if you're used to it, perhaps this is not the car for you. Another thing to note, which is perhaps a first world problem, is that you don't get anything like a reversing camera or a top-down view in anything other than trophy spec. In this SE long range, all we've got is rear parking sensors, nothing else. That's not a problem usually in a car of this size, but there are quite significant blind spots, so it can be more troublesome to park than you might think. Steering wise, again though, it's absolutely fine, very manoeuvrable, decent turning circle, so no issues on that front. It's just the visibility could be a bit better when trying to get into a tight space. Okay, so let's talk about that range for a minute, bearing in mind this car's claimed range is 281 miles. It's been very cold this week in the UK. No snow where I live, but it's been very, very cold, certainly sub-zero temperatures overnight. On Monday, I charged this car to 100%. At that time, it showed a claimed range of 267 miles. I guess taking into account how the car had been driven, it'd just been delivered to me, so it'd been on a motorway run, it was cold. So it showed 267 miles. Since then, I've driven 69 miles. It's now Thursday, okay? So it's actually less than 72 hours since I got the car up to 100% charge. I got in the car this morning, and here is the picture that I've just taken of the dash. It's got a claimed 131 miles of range left. Carol Vorderman, I'm not, despite the fact I am fairly voluptuous, but even I can work out that the numbers don't quite match up, and there's actually quite a big difference there. Now, because the weather's been so cold, we've had the heating on, and again that's going to take away from it, but it's really taken so much more power than anticipated that it shocked me a bit. Now, I've got some more EVs coming for review in the next couple of months. I've got a lot of EVs coming actually, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare in the cold temperatures. But to me, this just seems to have lost too much range, and I'd certainly like to try one out again in the warm weather and see how much of it may be smoke and mirrors around the actual range of the car, and how much of it has been affected by my use of the heating and by the cold weather. Now, perhaps some of you EV owners at home would like to share with me in the comments how much your range tends to drop in such low temperatures, and if you're using the heater and those kind of things. I'd be really interested to find out if this is something that affects all EVs to this degree, or if it's particularly bad on this car. So if it's a wider issue, it's surely something that needs to be factored into WLTP stats. When you think about the MG4, all the conversation about it, all the hype leading up to its launch was really about the price point. And yeah, that's very impressive that they've put this car together at that price point. But when you're driving the car, it's the furthest thing from your mind. The thing you're thinking about is just how well it handles, just how much fun it is on the twisties, just how competent it is. Everything feels good. The steering wheel feels good. Even the indicators and things, the controls, they feel sort of nicely damped. They feel decent quality. They don't feel like someone's just raided the Lucas parts bin from 1989. This is a nice car. You know, I like to sum these things up by telling you how I feel about the car going back at the end of my week with it, and I'll be very sad to see the back of this one. I've really enjoyed the car a lot. You can get a decent amount of shopping in the boot. You can get a couple of adults in the back. You could get 3 adults in the back, actually, for a short journey at least. And it's just such a nice thing to drive. When you want to pick up the shopping and the kids and drive in an adult fashion around town, no problems whatsoever. When you get to a deserted back road, you can have a little bit of fun in it. It sort of does a little bit of everything. Now, despite this being a battery electric vehicle and therefore, you know, a bit of a futuristic thing, it reminds me very much of when the Mark I Focus came out. That was a point in time where some of the interesting family hatchbacks had been diluted down a little bit. You know, the Escort was a shadow of its former self. There were some fairly dire cars on the market, some very utilitarian cars on the market. And the Focus came out, and A, it was a very bold design at the time, especially for Ford, and B, the thing just drove so well. It was a joy to drive. If you haven't driven a Mark I Focus, I assure you it's a far nicer thing to drive than the latest version of the Focus. This, for me, is doing what that Mark I Focus did in the sort of sub 30 grand family EV space. In a world of Zoes and Leafs and Mochas, this is doing something a bit different. It's more interesting. It's better to drive. It's bringing something new to that space, and I like it. So does the MG4 live up to all the hype? Well, yeah, really, it does. They've put together a very compelling package at a very competitive price. If you compare it against something like the VW ID.3 and look at value for money and driving experience and everything else, I just don't think there's really a comparison. This one's 20-25% cheaper, and they essentially do the same thing. And that's really a bit of a game changer. And it's one of several Chinese EVs coming to market that may just change things up in a big way for the more established manufacturers in Europe. The one big caveat I have to say is that range, that battery range. It's unusual circumstances at the moment. You know, we are looking at sub-zero temperatures and running the heater at full blast the whole time. But for me, the battery has depleted far more quickly than I would have expected on some of its rivals, in fairness. But as I haven't been able to test those rivals in the same weather conditions at the same time, doing the same journeys, you really have to take that with a pinch of salt. This could be a one-off and a unique set of circumstances, and it could be that in slightly warmer weather, the car's much more true to those claimed range numbers. Now, don't get me wrong, folks, this is a superb vehicle at a very compelling price, and it delivers a driving experience and an engagement with the driver that very few EVs currently do. If you're in the market for an EV of this size, you simply must try one of these cars out. even if it's just to tick it off your list. It's a brilliant thing. It's going to win tons of awards. Go and check one out today. Of course, if you're interested in leasing one of these cars, please follow the link to Lease Loco that's in the video description and pinned as the top comment. That will show you all the best lease deals available at the time that you click that link. And please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Lots of great car reviews coming up and lots in the back catalogue too. Always honest, always unbiased. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you next time.